this is the second video for chapter 2. So we're looking at displaying and describing categorical data distributions. So in the previous video, we looked at types of data, of which categorical data is one type and numerical data is another type. So remember, categorical data can be either nominal, meaning it's given a name, or ordinal, which means it can be put in some sort of order. So when analysing categorical data, we're often asked to make sense of a large number of data values that are given in no particular order. For example, if 30 children were offered a choice of a sandwich, a salad, or a pie for lunch, we might end up with a data set looking like the following. So you can see there the choices for the 30 children. To make sense of the data, we first need to organise it into a more manageable form. So one way of doing that is having a frequency table. So the statistical tool used for this purpose, so the purpose of organising our data, is called a frequency table. So a frequency table is a listing of the values of a variable the values a variable takes in a data set, along with how often or frequently each value occurs. So if we look back up here, these values aren't in any order. And it's quite hard to see how many students chose, or how many children chose sandwich, how many chose salad, and how many chose pie. So we'd use a frequency table just to organise it. So when frequencies are expressed as a proportion of the total number, they are called relative frequencies. Okay, so we're just counting up how many there are. Multiplying the relative frequencies by 100 converts them to percentage frequencies, which are easier to interpret. And it's also easier to compare two groups. So we might have, say, a small school like Shelford, and you might have a bigger school like Haileybury, and you're comparing them. It's probably best to compare percentages than actual numbers. Okay, so frequency can be recorded as frequency or count, which is the number of times a value occurs, or a percentage frequency. So it's very important that you take note if a question asks you to find the frequency, that you just report the number, or if it asks for a percentage, that you actually go ahead and calculate the percentage if it's not given to you. So to calculate the percentage frequency, you do the count by the total times 100%. So for this one here, how many students like sandwiches? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we were doing the percentage of that, it would be 7 divided by 30, because there were 30 children, times 100%. So let's look at a few examples. So example 1, constructing a frequency table for categorical data. So we can see here, exact same example as before. So we've got 30 children, offered a choice of sandwich or a salad or a pie. They choose the following. So let's count up each one. Okay, so sandwich first, 1. I know we just counted it, but let's just make sure I counted correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, let's go down here. 7. Salad, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now the next one, because they have to add up to 30, we should have 13 pies. So let's just make sure we get 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Good. I'm glad I can count. Okay, so if that didn't add up to 30, either there weren't 30 values here, or we just didn't count correctly. Okay, so there we have the count. If we're doing the percentage, so the sandwich, we have 70 divided by 30 times 100. For your salad, it's 10 divided by 30 times 100. And then lastly for pi, 13 times 100. And percentages should all add up to 100%. So I'm not going to go ahead and do that, but you can do that quite easily on your calculators. All right, another way of measuring categorical data is a bar chart. So if there's a lot of data, a frequency table gives a succinct summary of the information, while an indication of the group's preferences can be seen from the table. A graphical display is also useful. Okay, so a bar chart basically represents the same data, but in graphical form. When the data are categorical, the appropriate display is a bar chart. Now, it's extremely important that stuff like this, information like this, is retained, because often you are asked what is the best way to display this type of data, and you need to know the chart that best displays it basically. All right, so highlighted here in yellow, in a bar chart, frequency or percentage frequency is shown on the vertical axis. Okay, so you would have your categories down here, so before, and we're going to do this in a sec, I assume, so salad, pie, and then you'd have your frequency. So here, how many salads did we have? What was it, 7? Okay, so you'd have your frequencies going down here. You can actually, and I have seen them go the other way. So you have your bars going this way. Okay, so they are kind of, it's not a very good graph, but this can be the same thing, show the same thing, okay? But usually we have it displaying this way because it's just easier to read. The variable being displayed is plotted on the horizontal axis, so you can see here. The height of the bar or column gives a frequency or percentage. Okay, so it can show either the count or the percentage. The bars are drawn with gaps between them to indicate each value as a separate category. There is 1 bar for each category. So those 5 sets of criteria are what makes up a bar chart. Okay, so let's look at example 2. Constructing a bar chart from a frequency table. So here is the information from before for the first example, and you can see here the percentages have been done. They add up to 99.9 simply because of the rounding. Okay, so sometimes if you don't get 100, it's just because of the rounding, and there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so here we've got pie, salad, sandwich, and it's a different order to what it was on here. So just keep in mind that you're doing the right one, and we're doing the frequency. So I'm just going to have to remember, is that 13, 10, 7. So pi, we go up to 13, which is here. Okay, so this is not going to be good. When I say it's not going to be good, I mean straight lines. You would obviously use a nice ruler. What was it, 13, 10, 7. So that's sometimes easier just to draw where you're stopping and then do your vertical lines. And then 7. So it's also hard without grid lines, but we can, if you want, you can just write on there those values, 13, 10, 7. Okay, now the last part of 2B is a modal category. Okay, so the mode and modal are the same thing. So one of the features of a data set that is quickly revealed with a bar chart is the mode or modal category. This is the most frequently occurring category. Okay, so this is important to remember. This is what mode means. Most frequently occurring. In a bar chart, this is given by the category with the tallest bar. For the bar chart above, the modal category is pie. That is, for the children asked, the most frequent or popular lunch choice was a pie. However, the mode is of interest only when the single value or category in the frequency table occurs much more often than the others. Okay, so this is important to remember because sometimes if they were even, so if we go back to our, come on, why is it not letting me scroll? Let's just go back up. Sorry, let's get rid of that. Okay, so if these bars were all even, clearly there wouldn't be a mode. Okay, but here pi is the most frequent. And you can have bimodal. So bimodal means you have two categories, but that would mean that you would have quite a few categories there. All right, so let's just finish this section off. So modes are of particular importance in popularity polls. For example, in answering questions like, which is the most frequently watched TV station between the hours of 6 and 8? Or where does the supermarket in peak demand, morning, afternoon, or night? So when you think about, sometimes we say, like when we take the average, we think about the mean or the median, but you can't take the mean or median of categorical data. So we look at the mode. Okay, so mode is used mostly for categorical data to measure, I guess, the most popular, or what is the average, what do most people like, basically. Okay, bye.